All right, so now that I've pushed people's buttons already, because I don't have an issue with it personally, I'm really neutral on things. I've gotten to a very good point that I know exactly what makes me upset or mad, or what pushes my buttons is when somebody invades my boundaries or steps on my personal boundaries, or when someone's dishonoring or disrespectful to me personally. Those are the things that upset me, but someone else's choices, whether it's to eat animals or Republican none of that stuff in the external world ever upsets me anymore, because I've gotten myself to enough neutrality, to alignment with divine source consciousness, where it's neutral, it's non-judgmental. So my only emotional triggers are when someone's not honoring my own personal space, and that's not even up to them, it's up to me. It's an emotional response that says to me, oh, I have to get more aligned with honoring my own self, my own choices, right? Because everything that pisses us off, upsets us, angers us, triggers us, is simply an opportunity to come into more sacred neutrality. Do we understand that? Okay, so if you're pissed off, it's really your buttons being pushed to help you see where you're out of alignment with source. It's divine source, infinite love, it's acceptance, pure acceptance. Okay, good. So let me give you my background, since so many of you are new to me. I'm not going to go into it for a long time because I could take the whole hour up for that. But my name is Lori Ann Spagna. I am a channel, a multidimensional channel, an intuitive, an energy healer, an animal communicator, a psychic, and a gazillion other things that I don't even know. On and on I could go on. I'm a Starseed, a Lightworker. Those are all words that we use to define ourselves. I'm an embodiment of the best I can be to embody source consciousness. And what I love, love, love to do is to access the non-physical realm of unknown, the unknown reality, and bring it into the known. To take that information from the unknown, from the non-physical, to the best I can, translate it for those of us in the physical reality to make sense of, and use it to serve our highest and best, the highest and best of all humanity, ideally with harm to none. That's my objective. So my objective, my mission in life, now I understand, is to be of service and contribution to the collective in the ascension and the transformation of humanity as we elevate from an old reality, which we can see clearly is collapsing, and to elevate and expand our consciousness in the highest and best ways I can into this new reality. Does this make sense? And I've been doing this for 20 years. Really, overall, it's about helping humans and animals to align with source through a process of inner transformation and outer experience that helps us, right? That's what I do. So, and my website, for those of you who want to know more, just so you know, is lorispagna.com. You can get tons of fabulous, fantastic free classes, free healings, free activations, so you can sample the work, you know, in a free way that helps you and to experience it, right? Okay, so what are we here for? We're here to learn about, hello, come on in, our benevolent star family races, and to give you the other side of what's going on extraterrestrial-wise so far. And this is kind of an area I haven't talked about as much, more because there's so many people doing it already. But I think a lot of times what they offer in some cases is the history of it rather than the future of it. And so if we understand that up until really 2012, we have been, as a planetary system primarily governed by malevolent star family races. They are star families. We have parts of them in us. We do. In fact, our systems have been largely corrupted by them. So up until 2012, we were completely unconscious, mostly unaware that this malevolent star families were controlling and dominating and manipulating us. And these malevolent star family races, who are they? Reptilians. Reptilians. So let me give you some examples of how they have corrupted us. And please know, I'm going to give you all good news here. To me, it's all good news. But I just want to say where we come from really quickly. But just some examples. We know we have a reptilian brain stem. We know that that stems into our body. We understand that that reptilian brain stem comes with kinds of programming. Just like a computer has programs, our mind is like a computer processor, and the programs will run without us even knowing. So a good example of reptilian programming, for example, is I need meat to survive. That's not part of the original divine human blueprint. A human We'll define human in a moment, but that's not our original plan. So it doesn't mean you can't eat meat if you want. You just understand, be conscious, you're operating from a reptilian program. Nothing wrong, necessarily bad, good, wrong, right. We judge things, but that's what it is. Who believes that if you go into the sun, you will get burned and it will age you? Okay, that is a reptilian program. And if you need to put some kind of sunblock, that serves a reptilian agenda, because a sunblock is typically made of some kind of chemical that can get baked into your skin and serve a reptilian agenda that will cause you potentially to go to a doctor and get medical help, and that serves a reptilian agenda. Can we understand this conceptually? All right. So this pre-2012 reptilians were one of them. Who are the others? What did you say? Okay, the archons are symbolic of Nibiru and ancient aliens, multiple species, including reptilians and Nibiruans, who have controlled us as a collective species for everything linear time up until 2012. So you are correct, and we have all kinds of archontic programming that we now have to clear out. But yes, you are correct. Anyone else know the other ones?
No.
Palladians are benevolence, so we'll get to them in a moment. You are correct. Mantids, yes, mantids are another one. Greys and gray hybrids are another. Gray race has hybridized because they were unable to survive without human DNA to help them survive. This is why Greys did alien abductions in the 60s. You heard about Roswell, because they needed the DNA to survive. So they hybridized themselves now. They didn't even have a heart center. They didn't have any care. They didn't have the ability to care. That's why they were so brutal in their abductions. Well, that's debatable, because if you understand that everything ultimately is the soul of God, one source, however we define it, then they're an aspect of source too.
Okay.
But it is true. You're right, because certain beings have been so fragmented from their souls. Do you know, I've had people, the person I'm interacting with, or indirectly even, is so fragmented from their soul. I can see a string attaching the soul, and the soul is saying, please just keep talking to me, because it's impressing upon the person. It's the only way I can get back into the body. So you are right in that sense. Okay, so we spent enough about that. But this is what 2012 was. 2012 was the marker point that said these old negative alien agenda, let's call it that, even though negative is a judgment word in a way, who had malevolent of intentions to feed off the life force of humans without them knowing, and to live off this DNA and other forms of their energy. 2012 was the marker point in linear time where their gig was up. So when you heard those stories of the world is over, it wasn't the world's over, we can see. It was the world as we knew it was over, because we're no longer under their control. Now, this is the challenge point, because now we're in this window of time post-2012. We haven't anchored yet. You can go in there. There's also, I knew we were not going to have enough. There's seats over here too, but the only thing is to go around the camera without touching it if you could. So you can come right around. Don't worry about walking in front of it. Just try not to knock it over. Thank you. So, okay, so what was I saying? So 2012 was the marker point, and now we're in this window of time where people don't understand we're in a whole new reality. An entirely new reality. So what we're doing as a collective is we're pulling stuff from our history into our future. But really what we're in is a sort of a 0 point, even though we're not operating as if we're in a 0 point, where we get to create everything brand new. And these beings no longer have control, except to the degree that they can still influence you from the past of linear time. Do we understand this? So when we believe, for example, when you hear an astrologer, this is a good example, an astrologer say to you, well, when Pluto and Saturn converge, we had that same convergence X number of years ago, and the similar thing is going to happen. That's an example, pulling the past into the future.
Mercury retrograde.
Retrogrades are a good example, pulling the past into the future, although the purpose of that is to be able to review. There are higher purposes. But We always want to look for the higher purposes, because the highest truth is we're at a 0 point, and what's meant to happen at this 0 point of time is where we become conscious of everything that has ever existed, so we can say, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you, oh yes thank you. Yes, more of that. So let's talk about who's sort of in dominion now. And who's in dominion now is just these benevolents, whose intention is a benevolent one to help us basically graduate, for lack of a better term, right? Who are the benevolents? Generally more benevolent in nature. Palladians, very famous because they're so close to us in our solar system. Arcturians tend to be more benevolent. They're neutral. You understand? They're more neutral. So they're basically, Arcturians are basically saying, look, the agreement of the star races and the intergalactic nations was that at 2012, you guys would no longer be able to control, dominate, and manipulate without their conscious consent. So this is, they're still very neutral, but they are more benevolent in that sense. It's like the UN, right? Come on in. Okay, well, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's not really where I want to go so much. But yeah, you can have a seat here. We can move these around if you want.
There's one over there too.
Anywhere you want, just find a seat. So, okay. Where was I? I'm sorry.
Benevolent, Arcturians, more neutral,
Thank
like
you.
a UN.
Okay, so we also have, and it doesn't even matter, who they are doesn't matter, because in all my channels, Syrians, we have, I could go on about them, but it'll come up as it comes up, right? But the point is to understand that, I want to bring you in the big picture, to understand that the old beings who controlled us, so to speak, they are not separate from us. They are aspects of us. And here's the higher purpose of this whole thing. What is the higher purpose of this whole thing? This whole ET thing, this whole game of ETs.
Ascension?
Consciousness.
No, that's not the higher purpose. Yes. Yes, the expansion of consciousness. So how could Source and all its aspects of one divine source, however you call it, refer to it, or believe in it, whatever your perception, how could it expand its consciousness unless it became unconscious of itself? It can never expand itself. It knows everything there is. It sees everything. It's omnipresent, omnipotent. Omni-love, omni-consciousness. So how could that possibly expand itself unless it made itself unconscious? Can we understand that? So through the process of making itself unconscious as us, we are the embodiment of Source who went unconscious, and then we assign these beings, in a sense, I'm bringing you to a very high level of consciousness here, to make us unconscious and keep us entrapped in this realm of unconsciousness, knowing that at a certain point we'd be able to wake up. Does this make sense? So when you can understand that, suddenly these beings don't become so scary anymore, right? Because they're us. We put them there. So if I assigned you a job and your job wasn't done, and I kept saying, no, your job is done, you'd say, but there's 50 million other people who I still need to work with because they're unconscious, they're not ready for you yet to wake up. Does this make sense? So we don't have to hate them or judge them or make them wrong or bad. They did a lot of dark things. But of course, the purpose of the awakening is to forgive and release and understand and expand our consciousness and come into a greater capacity for love and consciousness by recognizing them as aspects of us. And we know that they have given us all kinds of DNA and programs, and sometimes it was the best of theirs and sometimes it was the worst, right? Because for a reptilian, if you stay out in the sun, too long you will die. You can't regulate your own, right? So, okay, if you don't eat meat for a reptilian, you will die. But as you wake up and you start to realize the potential within you and how you can clear this stuff, this is what we're going to talk about for the rest of our time, you start to realize there's something way better than all of that. Does this make sense? Okay. All right, so let's go to where we're going. How are we doing back there?
Very badly.
Okay, well, have a seat and breathe and bring in some goodness with you, because everything's all good here. All right, so where are we at? So where we're going. So now we've got this time where we get to awaken. We have this chance, this window time where our consciousness now gets to realize we have the ability to choose something new and different. And the problem is we have no reference point of what's available because we've never been fully conscious of it. We have no, how can you possibly know what joy and excitement is and huge, magnificent success according to your definition? I'm not even talking about houses and cars. I'm talking about success of fulfilling your life's mission, your life dream, your life purpose, your happiness, your joy, your love, your peace. How can you possibly know what that is when you've been in this cocoon? I'm saying you, but I mean all of us. Of fear-based control. Fear, dominance, and manipulation. Be afraid to go in the subway. Be afraid to interact with your neighbor because they might, throw dirt bombs on your house. Whatever. I mean, it's just a fear-based reality, right? So the way we have to free and liberate ourselves is through the expansion of our consciousness in a whole new way. Now the expansion of our consciousness is that we're willing to go within to find and seek and discover what it is that has kept us entrapped in this matrix. Do we understand this? Have I lost anyone yet? Okay, good. So, when we go within to find and seek what it is within us that has kept us entrapped in this matrix, that's when we start to discover the parts of us that I refer to, many other people do, as our shadow aspects. But understanding it's not shadow as bad, it's the things that kept us stuck in there, right? So this is our fear-based programs, our death-based programs that perpetuate death, illness, suffering, and sickness. That's what keeps you trapped in the matrix. Because as you awaken, those things get eradicated. Okay, so we go within. How do we go within? We start searching within to find within our own selves those parts of us that are still thinking, feeling, behaving as fear, as anger, as resentment, as death, as programs, etc. And we not only seek them out and find them, but we actually transform them. We have to learn to transform them and give them to what? Infinite love. We return them to infinite love because they're just an aspect of separation. Does this make sense? So as we're seeking and find them, we're doing what AA calls a searching and fearless moral inventory. Does this make sense? We're going within to find what is it within me that created that, contributed to that, and made it a live. Because I am the source. I am the source of the divine within me that I have to now uncover. Make sense? You've heard the saying, peeling the onion, right? Okay, now here's the really good news. That stuff, all that shadow stuff, where does it live, essentially? Where does it live? Conceptually. Yes, exactly. It's stored in the DNA. What strands? The first 2 strands of DNA. And it's also stored in the unconscious mind. So we know that in the matrix, a person who's fully operating in this 3rd-dimensional reality, that all there is separation in the world as we know it, separate from one another, separate from God, separate from the divine. Star families that's just woo-woo. Angels, woo-woo. All that stuff is woo-woo. All we know is the physical world. From that perspective, those people are operating only from 2 strands of DNA and only 10% or less of the brain. Right? Do we know this? Well, if you don't know it, it's true. And even less now, because if those people are continually eating genetically modified foods, for example, fluoride in the water, we all know this now here at lectures, expos like this. Artificial sweeteners, I mean, the red, green, the pink, yellow, and blue packets that you put in. Now they have artificial packets, they put them in green to make you feel like it's a little more nature.
Right, you noticed that.
Okay, diet sodas, diet sweeteners. Every time, this is going to push some buttons, every time you eat a dead animal, you accelerate the death process of your body. Take death in, death is accelerated. So this is all going on in here, and they're not only using 10% or less of their brain, their pineal gland, the pituitary gland, master glands completely atrophied, calcified, shut down, not accessing any of their other brain waves, only the active brain wave, which is a beta brain wave, and the sleep brain wave, which is a delta brain wave. This keeps everyone trapped in that matrix. So in order to start exiting, here's where again, the good news is going to start to come out of this. The first thing is we start meditating. Even if initially the meditation is sitting by an ocean and just actively listening, or sitting in nature, because we don't know how to meditate when we first start. Nobody knows, and people get frustrated, and then the antsiness, and I got to check my cell phone, I got to check my phone is pinging, my whatever. Even if it's only the most initial stages of being calm and quiet, sitting in nature for 5 minutes with an egg timer, actively listening, looking, paying attention, and breathing, that will start. That will activate the third brainwave, alpha brainwave, which starts to open the pineal gland. Just starts. Open the pineal gland, relaxes the body, starts to restore it to homeostasis. Those are the first stages. Then as you develop more meditation, accessing a theta brainwave. The vast majority of people have no idea it even exists. Theta brainwave connects you to the fourth dimension of unconscious realm, non-physical things. And as you do that more, and then you start getting in healing circles, your body starts to coming into more balance and harmony. Your physiology starts to reflect that. You start feeling better, thinking clearer. You start doing some of these esoteric practices, it opens you up even more. Now what happens? You start to realize that shadow stuff that needs to get cleared out of the first 2 strands of DNA. Healers do that, who know what they're doing. If they don't know what they're doing, maybe they're just helping you to relax, but they bring you eventually to the point where you realize you got to clear out all those programs. So anyone have a family history of any medical issue? Come on. If not every hand goes up, you're not telling me the truth. Okay, that is your first 2 strands of DNA. It can be cleared out completely. It is a record of your ancestors and what they believed and passed down through generations. And you took it on because they told you it was true. Even if it wasn't conscious, 90% of the brain is unconscious. Maybe you took it on unconsciously. So that has to be cleared out. I promise you the first 2 strands of DNA can be completely cleared. Neutralized. Neutralized. Now, there's not a disease, whether it's, even if it's I haven't had love for 20 years. That can be healed. I don't have enough money. I'm in lack. I've been poor my whole life. That's a dis-ease. That's a program, reptilian programming. Oh, there's not enough. It's ridiculous. If you're tapped into source, it's omni. Everything, abundance, omni-abundance. It's omni-poverty too. You want that? Fine. So we're not limiting this only to disease. We're saying the first 2 strands of programming, if it was passed down through your generation, that you're poor and you have to be maybe you got it from a slave, maybe, you know, for people of color, they might have taken on that program, they don't get good jobs, who knows what it could have been, whatever messages you got, it's stored in your records, which are also the Akashic records, a field of consciousness, but it's in your DNA and it can be all cleared out now. Because we're now in a neutral. And neutralizing all of that programming is effort, so easy. And here's what's really amazing. Beyond the first 2 strands are 10 more physical strands. There's way more than 10. But those are etheric, so they don't, in this reality, they don't talk about them. They don't really know about them because they're etheric. They're non-physical in that sense. But so we got 10 more strands of what science in this reality has acknowledged is dormant. You used to think it was junk, right? Everyone with me? And that DNA is holding your greatest potential. It's holding the solutions to the world's problems. What else is it holding? In a conference like this. Come on in.
Your well-being, your good
Yes,
health.
it's holding your well-being. It's holding your psychic potential. Now, not everybody wants to be a psychic, but everybody has the ability to use their intuitive knowing to know what's for their highest and best, whether it's what's for my highest and best. What's the highest and best use of my time, my energy, my money, my life? What's the highest and best activity for me to take today? What's the highest and best thought for me to choose? What's the highest and best emotion for me to experience? That's in there. That's all psychic, right? That's aspects of being psychic, intuitive, right? Our empathic nature, oh, it feels so good here. Oh, this feels terrible. I'm so stressed out. That's intuitive. Right now, we put ourselves in harmful, detrimental situations because we're not using that. If you go into a chemotherapy office and your body starts going like this, and you just do it anyway, you're not listening to your own intuitive nature, right? I'm saying you, but I mean all of us. Make sense? So as we unlock this, that psychic potential is in the DNA. We're all psychic. Everybody's an empath. Everybody is a brilliant mind. Everybody has the ability. Eventually, I don't think I'm crazy to say we're going to be teletransporting. We're going to be potentially flying, some version of flying, maybe not like birds, but some version of levitation, lifting, and moving in space. I mean, all these things, it's in our dormant DNA. So when some scientist over here gets on telling you, like, the world's about to end because this is happening, he does not understand that within us we have the ability to generate all the solutions when we wake up from this reality. And it's in our DNA. These are records. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Okay, also in the DNA, and then I want to talk about the crystals. So all of the benevolent ETs, what they've also done is given us the benevolent aspects. But these benevolent, desirable aspects, they're stored up, most of them, beyond the first two strands. So we talk about, for example, since we all know Palladians are typically known as extremely heart-centered, extremely love-based, extremely generous, kind, giving, caring, forgiving. That's in our DNA. And it is part of the original divine human blueprint, because the original divine human blueprint, which is dormant in the DNA, dormant, that original divine human blueprint is a blueprint for perfection. Perfection beyond what our logical mind thinks. Perfection in the sense of perfect health, perfect well-being, according to your unique plan. It might be different from yours. But every human carries a unique blueprint, which is unique to them, and every human carries one that is unique for all the human species. In other words, it's not individualized. That does not include aging or sickness or suffering, and maybe not even death, or at least that death is a choice. When and how. When and how you choose to just exit this physical reality and step into a non-physical reality with consciousness. It doesn't have to be pain and suffering. That's unconscious programming. So, okay, we talked about original divine blueprint. We talked about Palladians, so they're more benevolent. Syrians, for example, are known to be very, very expanded in their consciousness of mathematics, higher intelligence, higher learning. A lot of them work with sacred geometry. You're laughing. Is it funny or no? Are you with me? Okay. Is anyone not with me? Have I lost anyone? It's okay with me if you don't agree. If anyone's lost. Okay, because I move very fast, but understand, you don't even have to intellectualize it all, because you're in a field of energy that ultimately it's going to integrate into your consciousness. And then a week from now or a month from now, you start being like, I knew it all along. All right, so, yeah. So we've only been using like a little teeny fraction of our brains. Not just that it's 10%, we're also mostly only operating from our left analytical brain. The analytical brain, where we analyze and we make steps and we figure things out. And the reason we can't find the solutions to our issues is because we're trying to figure it out, and we cannot figure our way out of here. So when we talk about Syrians, for example, come on in, there's some seats in over here.
I'm trying to find a...
If someone doesn't mind just helping you to find your spot. So part of coming out of here is we must engage the right brain, for example. The right brain is what, by the way, this is what the animals are here helping us with, part of what they're helping us with, because they're all right-brained, much more right-brained. They're not sitting there analyzing how they're going to pay their bills, what they're going to make for dinner. They let you do that. They're in their state of knowing. Right brain knows. The right brain knows what the left brain's trying to figure out. So when you activate your right brain, you start getting to like, I don't know the answer, but I know it's going to be just fine. And then it is. I don't know if there's going to be a taxi there, but I'm intending that there'll be a taxi waiting at Grand Central. It'll be perfect, fine, well, good, and divine. I'm going to let that be. And so it is. Because this is when the left brain's operating with the right brain. Left brain doesn't try to figure it out. The right brain allows yourself to feel and know. And the two together create in perfect harmony, right? So here's another way out of this matrix. Within the DNA, part of activating the DNA, what is the gateway gene in the DNA that activates the other 10, helps to initiate the activation of the other 10 strands? I haven't said this in a long time. Years ago I used to say this. You know what it is? Compassion. There is a gene of compassion. You can't, you see these reptilian hybrids who are running, okay, I'm going to push some buttons, you know, running the political arena, running the banks, running the Roman Catholic Church, and all organized religions, they do not have the compassion gene activated. The bulk of them, not all of them, you can't say, well. So they haven't even accessed their power to the true power of humanity lies within the other 10 strands. This is why you can give your DNA away for free on DNA Ancestry. Do you understand? They're after the DNA.
Yeah.
They need that DNA because they need the keys that they do not have. They don't understand it's sitting with them too. They have to try and go from the dark side to the light side. They have to wake up. All right, so not to polarize it like that, because really it is all source, reflections of source. So, okay, but this compassion gene, when we exhibit forgiveness and compassion, it opens the gateway to the other 10 strands of DNA, yeah? And these brilliant, wonderful things we're talking about. Now, what else is in the DNA? This is what I love, and I got to get to the sacred geometry, the crystals, and these codes. So, what we have in the 10 strands of DNA is what I call star code markings. I'm being told do crystals first, so I'm going to do that first. Then I'll come to star code markings. Will you remind me, star code markings? So, let me explain why crystals are so important, why you find them at these expos all the time. What these crystals are living things, conscious things. So we in this reality cannot imagine that something like a crystal could actually be conscious of itself. It's just an inanimate object. And even the stretch for people now is like, well, it's got these lines in it just like a tree has. Oh my God, 10 minutes? Are you kidding me? Okay, just like a tree has lines, which you can look at the tree and you can know the history of the tree, the environment, the age. Okay, we can stretch and say, yeah, okay, the crystal has that. But it's a real stretch to say that this crystal is actually a, what's the word I use, Michelle? A time capsule, thank you. A time capsule from our star family races, versions of us in the future, in a sense of linear time, because linear time is also an illusion, right? But we're not discussing that today. Who put this here, buried it inside the earth, with all the information and codes that we need to access. Okay, this one unique crystal might not have every code, but it's got codes, it's got information, and it's conscious of itself as a crystal, of its work, of its story, of its mission. And as it resonates with the person, it's like, yeah, we can work with you. We can awaken you. We can help you with your DNA. Now, here's why. From a more unconscious, is this making sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Very out there, I get it. But here's what's so amazing. These crystals have perfect patterns of sacred geometry. You asked about a Merkaba? That's an example. Perfect patterns of sacred geometrical pattern. Now, the original perfect pattern is, what's this?